Tsharre Sanders. I'm a master's student in the Youth, Family, and Community Sciences program at NC State. And for my research project, I wanted to look at reconciling an LGBT identity with a Christian identity. Although there are some sects of Christianity where social justice is intertwined into the faith and the teachings, it hasn't always been the case. And historically, the interpretation of biblical texts by Christians has been used to harm minoritized populations, and I argue that LGBT individuals are no different, and that this interpretation and the homophobic rhetoric and the transphobic rhetoric in the Christian community can come as an issue for LGBT people who want to maintain a faith system. Through my research, I hope to find a trend in how people who hold membership in both communities, in the LGBT community and a religious community, view themselves. And the second thing I hope to find was whether or not they were able to maintain a faith system, and what that is if it's not their original one. How did they make their faith work? Before we go any further, I also think it's important for me to distinguish between religion and faith, since that's going to be a big part of this presentation. Religion is seen, or in my opinion, I will say in my opinion, I'm talking about religion as a set of rules that leads to salvation, or a set of rules you have to follow to achieve salvation or achieve right relationship with God. And faith would be a more personal relationship. There is not as strict a set of rules. There are still guidelines or guiding factors for one's life, but it's a more personal journey, a more deep journey, and it's a little bit more spiritual than strict and set on rules. An LGBT identity is a self-reported identity, and people are not forced to disclose that type of information. And so it's really hard to track how many gay or lesbian, transgender, bisexual, queer, intersex, asexual individuals there are in the United States. But right now Gallup did a study, and currently there are about 4.1% of United States citizens are identifying as LGBT, and this means that's about 10 million people are identifying as a member of that community. And of those 10 million, about 46% of those people are identifying as people of faith. Following are some statistics from the Pew Research Center about identities and or religions in general, so you can get a better feel for what the climate is like. For the research, I conducted one interview. It lasted for about 30 minutes with a queer-identified white woman, cisgender white woman, who is partnered. We talked a bit about identity and faith, the bad experiences with faith, how she got into faith, and then how the identities started to contradict one another, and how that led to her faith system changing a bit, and the direction she's headed in now, as well as how she went from feeling like she belonged somewhere to being really ostracized. I also sent out a 16-question survey to folks who I was connected to, who I knew were between the ages of 18 and 30. So they could still be considered youth, some of them. And they also identify as LGBT Christians. There were 9 responses to the 16-question survey. The survey asked questions about demographic information, so race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, and then there was also questions about faith in the past and how that faith is now, and the strength of both of those faith affiliations and how they relate to God and other followers of their faith. As far as analyzing the data, I did find 2 themes or 2 trends. The first is relationship with self, and the second is relationship with faith. And under each of those, there is a questioning aspect. Under relationship with self, there's also self-loathing, acceptance, and community. And under relationship with faith, in addition to questioning, there's also dissonance and reimagining God. And so with the relationship with self, there's a questioning of the identity, how valid it is. After one has come to understand that that is a part of their identity, there tends to be a bit of self-loathing or self-hate. After the hatred period, there's some acceptance, and then later on, community is sought out and found so that one feels affirmed in their identity. As far as the relationship with faith, you start to question what you grew up learning, and then there begins to be some dissonance after you've accepted that you are who you are, and then you have to reimagine God for yourself to see how that works for you. So based on what I found, I did see that most participants are still religious, but it's just the strength of the affiliation that's lower. So only 22.2% noted that they were no longer religious. When asked to rank the strength of their affiliation, only 33.3% noted that the religious affiliation strength was very, very strong. And amount of time at church and the amount of time in prayer was very high amongst all of them that noted that they were religious. I also found that how other believers think about them, so the opinions that other believers hold about LGBT Christians, is important for how they think about themselves, but how other believers connect with them, so small groups or connecting outside of church, doesn't necessarily impact how they feel about themselves. Most of them end up being comfortable with their sexual orientation or gender identity and just less comfortable with their religion. As noted by one of the questions, they also noted that they may have to look at other ways of believing or having dialogue with God, and that just the journey of identity reconciliation is deeply personal. As far as what I learned, I just learned that I need to be a little bit better with my time management, which is not a surprise to me. And I also need a little bit more instruction on quantitative methods and how to really get meaningful information from a quantitative method. And then that data collection is just tough. It's tough looking for patterns. It's tough getting enough people to participate so that you can find a pattern. Overall, I appreciated the project, and I'm glad I got to do it in this class.